All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're putting on our investigative reporter hats to look into a case that has absolutely shaken the foundations of what we thought we knew about our past. So, we're going back to the year 2026. A team of scientists ran a DNA test on a set of skeletal remains recently uncovered in Ecuador. Now, these weren't your average historical remains. They were unusually large and unusually old. And when the lab data finally came back, it produced a result that stopped the entire highly credentialed research team dead in their tracks. We're talking about a scientific anomaly so profound that the lead researcher has literally vanished from the public eye.
Okay, let's dive right into this because the bottom line of that explosive test is just staggering. The genetic sequence extracted from these remains, it did not match any living human population on Earth. It didn't match any known ancient human population. It didn't even match our well-documented evolutionary cousins like Neanderthal or Denisovan markers. It was something else entirely, an absolute biological ghost. And the reaction to this discovery wasn't scientific celebration, it was immediate panicked suppression.
48 hours. That is the terrifying speed at which this information was buried. Within exactly 2 days of that test result being confirmed, the institutional vaults were completely locked down. Access was totally revoked, and like I mentioned, the lead researcher hasn't spoken a single word publicly since. We are looking at a real-time modern-day cover-up of historical proportions. But to truly understand why this panic lockdown happened, we really need to look at exactly what it was they were testing.
So moving into Section 1, the Giant of Ecuador, Myth meets Paleogenomics.
This is where the backstory of these remains meets hard, undeniable forensics. For years, there have been whispers in fringe archaeology circles about these massive skeletal structures, remains significantly above average human height, being recovered from the remote mountainous regions of Ecuador and other parts of South America. For a long time, the mainstream scientific position was simple and dismissive. They just branded these finds as hoaxes, misidentifications, or gross exaggerations. But directly opposed to that was the physical reality of the bones themselves. These were undeniably unusually large, unusually old skeletal structures that physically existed. And in 2026, a research team finally decided to settle this debate once and for all, using the absolute ultimate arbiter of truth, DNA.
Now, this wasn't just some lab error or a contaminated sample. The researchers applied state-of-the-art, modern, ancient DNA extraction techniques. We're talking the exact same methodology that successfully identified Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA in modern human populations. These are techniques refined over 20 years of intense paleogenomics research, methods that are published in peer-reviewed journals and internationally accepted by the entire scientific community. So the test was absolutely credible, which means those terrifying results, they were real.
Section 2, Decoding our Genetic Architecture.
I want to carefully break down what these results actually mean structurally, because the phrase non-human genetic sequence gets thrown around a lot on the internet without any real explanation. When DNA researchers say a sequence is non-human, they don't necessarily mean a little green man. By strict scientific definition, they mean it's a genetic sequence deviating from our standard biological architecture in ways that absolutely cannot be explained by natural mutation, population isolation, or known hybridization events. It literally breaks the mathematical rules of our evolutionary biology.
So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding our own baseline. Human DNA follows a very specific, rigid structure. We have 23 chromosome pairs, we have a defined sequence of base pairs, and this shared fundamental architecture is incredibly consistent across wildly different global populations today. Whether you're looking at African, Asian, Native American, or European populations, we all share this exact same biological blueprint. But the Ecuador anomaly, it threw this entire rulebook right out the window.
Think about it. The last time a genetic anomaly of this magnitude occurred, scientists discovered the Denisovans. That was an entirely separate species of human-like beings that lived alongside Homo sapiens. That discovery was published. It famously rewrote the human family tree, and we learned all about known interbreeding. But the Ecuador anomaly? Suppressed, vaults locked, unknown origin. It raises a massive, glaring question: what did the Denisovan test results actually look like before the institutions decided it was safe to tell the public?
All right, Section 3, Erasing the Evolutionary Timeline, the 2026 Global Pattern. Here is what makes the Ecuador story hit so much harder in 2026 than it would have even 5 years prior. This cover-up isn't just an isolated incident. It's actually part of a massive global stringboard of anomalies. Let's rapidly sequence through these explosive peer-reviewed findings, all from the exact same year.
In March 2026, scientists found 6,000-year-old human remains whose DNA simply does not match any living or ancient population in the scientific database. Then, a month later, in April 2026, a massive study analyzing nearly 16,000 ancient DNA samples revealed genetic variants that have absolutely no traceable origin in the known human evolutionary record. And in that very same month, archaeologists uncovered hard evidence of advanced, organized human behavior in North America dating back 12,000 years. That's 6,000 years before such behavior was supposed to exist in Europe. And these aren't fringe blogs, guys. These are studies published in heavyweights like Nature and American Antiquity with full institutional backing.
When you compile all this data, the conclusion is just inescapable. The official timeline of human history is wrong. And not just slightly wrong. It is significantly, fundamentally, and structurally wrong. The institutions are panicking right now because the foundation is cracking.
Let's move to Section 4, the UAP disclosure connection.
But really, why the total lockdown? Why the 48-hour vault closures? To answer that, we have to look at what else was happening in 2026, where archaeological suppressions directly intersect with concurrent massive government actions. Follow the timeline closely with me here. First, the Pentagon officially releases 160 UAP files. Second, high-level whistleblowers go before Congress and testify, under oath, about recovered non-human craft and non-human biologics. Third, the President of the United States personally directs an agency to unseal documents regarding encounters with non-human intelligence. And at the exact same time all of this disclosure is happening, DNA from ancient skeletal remains in Ecuador comes back non-human, and the archaeological vaults are slammed shut. These are not separate stories happening in a vacuum. They are the exact same story.
And that story, the core thesis that every locked vault and sealed file is trying to hide, is this. We are not the only intelligent species that has ever existed on this planet. Whether that anomalous Ecuador species arrived from somewhere else entirely, or whether they evolved right here alongside us and were deliberately written out of the historical record, that is the terrifying reality the institutions are desperately trying to manage.
Section 5, the locked vaults.
The institutions are fighting a losing battle against the scientific method itself. The stark, deafening silence tells us everything we need to know. The research team that ran the Ecuador DNA test has not commented publicly. The institution that holds the remains has not responded to press inquiries. The vaults are locked tight. But here's the thing about the modern era of paleogenomics. The data exists. It was recorded. And no matter how many vaults you lock, raw data has a way of getting out eventually. They're simply running out of vaults to hide the anomalies in.
I'm going to be following this investigation incredibly closely, because when this data fully breaks, it is going to break our entire understanding of history. I want to leave you with this crucial question. Are these ancient DNA anomalies directly connected to the ongoing government UAP disclosure? Because looking at the timeline of 2026, the overlap is becoming very, very hard to ignore. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and please subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up to this explainer when the next piece of data inevitably leaks. I'll see you in the next one.